There's really all of 3 weeks left until the election, and there still is no messaging beyond skin color and gender for Team Kamala Harris, and they cannot get out of their own way. Good morning, 6:05 on a Friday. It's great to be here on KCMO. Man, oh man, oh man. Just wanted to mention it real quick. The Royals season comes to an end last night. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we were hoping for. We got our guy, Mark. He is on the other side of the glass, repping proudly. It's not a red Friday with the Chiefs on a bye, so you've got your blue on for your Blues this morning, Mark.
One last time. I caught the fever. Wanted to catch the fever shirt, so, we're all sad, but we didn't expect them to go to the playoffs this year after 107 losses last year.
Well, that's true. And eventually you got to hit the ball. You got to score runs. That's the name of the game. And they could not do it effectively through 2 games at Kauffman Stadium. So awesome season by the Royals, and we'll see how it plays out going forward. Now it's going to be back to the stadium chatter. Can they get that stadium deal done? Oh, boy. There's plenty of time to talk about that. In the meantime, you've got a presidential candidate who does not know how to brand herself beyond gender and skin color. And that was on display again yesterday. I bring this up because yesterday was a very busy day for this show, at least for me. Mark was watching baseball, but I'm running around. I got to put the whole damn station on my back sometimes. Ray's kicking his feet up. He's, lifting weights at the gym. And I'm going up to Parkville yesterday, interviewing Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker, which I'll play coming up at 6:35. You'll hear that right here on KCMO. And then last night, I'm down in Lynn County, Kansas, for their Sunflower Club event. And what a great group of people and great bunch of folks down there in Lynn County. And got back late last night and then turned around this morning for the show. And one of the things that was talked about last night was the fact that there is no messaging here for Kamala Harris. There isn't. The messaging is she's kind of Joe Biden, but she's not Joe Biden, but she wants credit for whatever Biden did that was good, which is really not much, but whatever. But then also like she's the change agent. It just doesn't make any sense to even the casual voter who's like, I don't know her, but she's telling me she's a new way forward, but she's also trying to tell me she's ready for the job because she's the sitting vice president. You just can't square it, right? You can't figure out how to make sense of somebody who is giving you these 2 very different messages, but then is trying to pitch herself as the person who should be the leader of the free world. And we talked a lot about this last night when I was down there in Lynn County with the folks who were with that Sunflower Club. So I get back last night, and it's like perfectly right on cue. I open up X, and I see this clip from Mitch Landrieu, who is one of Kamala Harris's advisors. And he gets asked this very question on CNN. How are you trying to pitch your candidate as the person who's the change agent while also saying she's ready for the job because she's been the VP for the last 4 years? How are you squaring this?
President Harris has been asked repeatedly how she's different than President Biden, and some people think she's been tripped up by answering that. How do you think she is different than President Biden?
Well, first of all, whatever the differences is between them, it's not nearly as vast as the difference between her and Donald Trump. She's obviously a woman. She is a woman of color, and she is of a new generation. So she is not Joe Biden, as much as they want to try to make her Joe Biden. But she was and is part of the Biden administration.
What? That's the best you've got. Think about this. They have had 2.5 months to figure out how they're going to try to tell the American people that Kamala Harris is the candidate they should vote for and how she's different from Joe Biden. And the best they can do is say, well, she's different from Joe Biden and she's different from Donald Trump. Really? I didn't realize that. That is amazing news. I
picked up that jewel off Colbert, I guess, the other night, right?
Yes. Boy, I really couldn't tell. I had no idea that she was a different human being than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Wow. Slap me upside the head and color me shocked. I cannot believe it. It is such an insult to any reasonably minded American to be sitting there right now and saying, hey, just tell me how you're different. Just tell me what you're bringing to the table that hasn't been done yet and why I should basically keep giving you a shot when you've been in that number 2 role for the better part of 4 years now. Well, I'm not Trump. They really thought that was going to be enough. They genuinely believed that it was going to be enough for them to go out there and tell the American people, well, she's not Donald Trump.
It is good enough in the bubble.
Well, that's true.
Right?
Yes. In the bubble with the MSNBC viewer. It's enough. It doesn't really matter what you do or don't do. It's enough to just not be Donald Trump. It is not enough in Kansas and Missouri, obviously. It was never going to be enough here. It's not enough in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, in Nevada, in Georgia, in Arizona. It's not enough in those places. And those are the places that will decide the next president of the United States. I mean, of course, we're going to do our duty here. We're going to go vote. We were talking about it last night when I was in Lynn County. Get out there, vote early. Don't vote often, just vote early. All right? Don't do both. Just get out there. But it helps the parties that you want to win when you vote early. Republicans have been behind the 8 ball on that front. I think they're learning their lesson, and you will see a big change this year. But in the places that are going to decide this thing, having your spokespeople and then you as the candidate get up there and if your answer to how you're different and the answer to why you're not Joe Biden is, well, I'm also not Donald Trump and look at my skin color. And at what point do the American people throw their hands up and say, geez, the world's on fire. My bills are up 25%. My dollar's less valuable than it was 4 years ago. Can you give me something else? Can you give me something to latch onto here? Just a little juice. As we have 3 weeks to go until the election. And the answer, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, is no, there's nothing new. There's nothing there. And there really is only 3 weeks left because as I heard somebody say yesterday, you really have until the Saturday before the election to get your message out, to do your door knocking, to do all those things. And tomorrow is 3 weeks until the Saturday before Election Day, which is just crazy. I mean, one of the problems for me is I can't get myself into that headspace because it's going to be 90 degrees this weekend. Can we get a little fall around here in Kansas City? My goodness, just a little bit of fall. That's all I'm asking for. Mark's in shorts again today, I think, in there. It's unbelievable. So, yes, John.
No, I did mention, obviously, back when we had the cooler days, we'll pay for it later. Here we are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Due.
I just want a little bit of fall. That's all I'm asking for.
I know, right?
Just
tease me.
A hint. It's all I need here. So as we get it going on a Friday morning, you will hear from Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker exclusively on this show at 6:35. It's just over 20 minutes away. You don't want to miss it here on KCMO. I had the chance to talk to both guys privately in Parkville yesterday. As they started off the day here, they went over to the St. Louis side of the state as well for a rally over there. And we'll get it all going on a busy Friday morning, 913-408-7957. My question for you is this. At this point, what could Kamala Harris do? What is that thing that she could do to turn her fortunes? And the other way to look at it is what could Trump do? Because right now, he is in as good of a spot as he has been since the day after he was shot in Butler County, Pennsylvania. 913-408-7957. I want to welcome you in. It's been a busy week, so we will get to you before the Butker-Hawley interview here on KCMO. 913-408-7957. You will hear from Harrison Butker and Josh Hawley coming up in 15 minutes right here on KCMO. Got a chance to chat with those two guys yesterday in Parkville where they started a campaign tour blitz, and it was a great conversation. Two solid guys, first time meeting Harrison. Obviously, known Josh for several years now and covered him and talked to him and spent time together. So Known him for a while, but first time meeting Harrison, and he was just a stand-up dude, and we had a good time. So we'll play that for you here in 15 minutes on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. 3 weeks to go. That's really it. And I know it's hard to believe because we're getting ready for another 90-degree weekend here in Kansas City, but we are down the home stretch. And the Kamala Harris team is still desperately trying to find their footing. And that's why they're going on a media blitz. That's what they're doing. They're going on a media blitz because they think they have to. Not because they want to, but they think they have to. And my question for you here is, as we sit here at 6:20 on a Friday morning, like, I know how many of you feel, but look at it. Just put on your wonk hat for a second. What could she realistically do at this point to turn the page as this campaign continues to flounder? I mean, Trump's kicking back and doing the best thing he can do, which is just staying out of her way. Like, don't steal the spotlight. He's just staying out of the way, doing his thing, doing some podcasts, doing a little media, doing some rallies, and letting the chips fall where they may. But he's staying out of her way, John.
Well, I don't know. Maybe she's going to be on HGTV this weekend. Right? She's been on the Weather Channel. So
that's right.
To be haunting the cable distribution system.
We got meteorologist Kamala during Hurricane Milton here in the last couple of days. So maybe now she can go with Joanna Gaines and start, banging down walls with Chip Gaines and refurnishing houses and the whole thing. That could be a way forward for her. I don't know. Willard's in Independence, 913-408-7957. Willard, what's up, big man?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm well, buddy. What's happening?
Nothing. I'm just I made myself a note on my iPhone to remember this slogan that I kind of pulled out of my butt, and it's basically what I was saying, the play on words, because the Harris campaign is moving forward. And I was thinking if you just change it to moving for war, that makes a lot of sense because the world's in such turmoil now, and she can't seem to answer any questions or be firm with anyone.
You know what? That's not bad, Willard. That's not bad. I'm glad you wrote it down, buddy. That's good. I think that Donald Trump could use that instead of, hey, she's talking about moving forward. What she's really talking about is moving for war. It reminds me of a meme I've seen floating around the internet where it's like a mother sitting down with her son, and the son goes, Mommy, I don't want to go to war. And the mother responds and says, sorry, son, I really wanted a woman president. It's like, yeah, if you are someone who wants to see peace and prosperity around the world, and you're an anti-war person, and frankly, we all should be anti-war people unless you're like Liz Cheney and you profit off of that, Donald Trump has to be your candidate. What's very concerning, if you're a Kamala Harris supporter, is that they're going back to the Hillary Clinton playbook, where Donald Trump is this chaotic figure who's going to lead to war and destruction amongst, our enemies around the world. It didn't work in 2016. We know that, right? But it really doesn't work now because you have a 4-year track record of his and you have a 4-year track record of hers with Joe Biden to look at and compare to on the world stage. And Donald Trump, whatever you think of him and his style, the facts are this. The world was a much safer place, and the world was a much less chaotic place while he was the president of the United States. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden get in there. They reek of weakness. I mean, you can smell the weakness from Russia, from Iran, from China. There is no respect. They smell it from halfway across the world, and suddenly they start acting out. Like those thugs on the world stage, they're basically like the guys who look at the United States and they see the substitute teachers in charge.
Are you talking about Trump, the warmonger that had set up the withdrawal from Afghanistan?
Yes.
Now, he set it up.
Yes.
Obviously didn't execute it.
He didn't. He wasn't the guy who butchered it.
Implemented by others.
Bingo. Exactly right. So you have these 2 4-year terms to compare, and you say to yourself, well, which one resulted in a safer world, in a less chaotic world? And it was undeniably Donald Trump's 4 years. Now, you may not like the way he handled some of the interactions with some of the global leaders and some of the thugs on the world stage. But guess what? They were kept in check. The Putins of the world, the Xi's of the world, the Kim Jong-uns, I mean, those guys were kept in check. Biden shows up, and it's like the substitute teacher showing up to your classroom in 6th grade. What happens? The guys start goofing around and acting out. It's as predictable as anything else. You remember those days. I mean, put yourself back in that 6th grade classroom. Come on now. You remember how, the sub's here. All right, we're all going to goof off. That's what's happening, except now, in this case, the stakes are much higher. That's the difference. Jeff's in Overland Park on KCMO. What's up, Jeff? Good morning.
Morning, Pete. In all honesty, I don't think it matters, man. If you remember watching Kamala looking at her teleprompter, and then all of a sudden it just stopped, she just, like, the soul left her body.
That was a couple days ago. I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, people still just cheered for this woman. I just don't think the left cares. She's a warm DEI body in a seat, and they're content with that. Their hatred for Trump is so great that they're willing to put this woman in office. Wild.
It is pretty wild, and it does go to show you, thank you, Jeff, happy Friday, man. It does go to show you where this country is at right now, that for so many people, they can't just look at the data and look at the differences. Whether you want to look at foreign policy, whether you want to look at domestic policy, whether you want to look at economic policy and say, I'm not saying you got to think Trump's the greatest guy, just this really swell fella who you'd want to have over for Thanksgiving dinner. It's okay to feel like that's not who he is. I don't feel that way about him. I really don't. I like him. I respect him as the president of the United States. I respect what he's done for the country. But I don't sit here and think he's the greatest guy. But you've got two options. And the two options could not be more different. And the track records of the two options could not be more different. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, you are going to hear from Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker, who I had the chance to interview yesterday exclusively while they were doing a campaign stop in Parkville. We will play that for you next on KCMO Talk Radio, and you can also stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Yesterday, got up to Parkville, where Josh Hawley was kicking off a day of campaign events. He started here in Parkville. He made his way to the other side of the state, and he had a special guest in tow with him, and that is Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker. So Harrison Butker obviously has been a highly talked about figure, not just in this town, but around the country, in the wake of that highly controversial, as I put up my air quotes, speech at Benedictine College. And I had about 5 minutes to chat with these two guys yesterday. I mean, they're moving a mile a minute, right? So we got together, got to do a little small talk, and then did about a 5-minute Q&A before they got out and fired up the crowd in Parkville yesterday. So we got this exclusively. The TV stations, newspapers, nobody else was a part of it. It was a one-on-one with myself and these two guys. And I had about 5 minutes to talk to them about this endorsement, what it means for Josh Hawley. So with that, I want to welcome in our new listeners from the Kansas City Star, from KCUR, from Woke 41 Action News, and all the other folks who could not get this kind of access that we had yesterday up there in Parkville. Let's roll it with Senator Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker yesterday in Parkville. Here we go. Here with Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker as we get set for, 25 days as of Friday, Senator, till hopefully a re-election bid?
That's right, 25 days to go. We got a lot of ground to cover between now and then, Pete, but we're running hard. I'm excited.
All right, how about having this guy support Harrison Butker in your corner?
Huge.
You and I have that photo in your office of his jersey just over our shoulder, and now here he is campaigning with you.
It means the world to me, and to have a 3-time Super Bowl champion at your side is just it's a tremendous honor. And, Harrison is somebody who the whole state knows, really the whole world knows now, as a man of integrity, a man of courage, a man of principle. And to have his support is just tremendous.
Harrison, right now you look at the world of sports and it's kind of dicey. Some people don't want to do this stuff and get involved in politics. Why do it now and why support Josh Hawley?
I'm on year 8 now, and I've made that decision that I've kicked really well for the last 7 years and hopefully another 8th. And God's given me this platform, and I'm ready to use it. I now have 3 children, and there's many different issues that I care a lot about. And I've been friends now with Senator Hawley for the last several years. And to have a man that's a man of faith that wants to bring back traditional values to our country, I'm completely behind that, and I'm excited to be here today at my first rally to support Senator Hawley.
So what about the Benedictine? Was that kind of like a coming out party for you in hindsight? Do you look back on that and just say to yourself, did that give you, I guess, confidence to do stuff like this?
I will say it did give me some confidence. I've done some speeches here and there, and I really don't like doing them, but I decided, okay, Benedictine College wants me to go there and give a 20-minute speech. I'm going to speak on things that matter to me that I think our world needs to hear. I didn't think it was going to go that viral, but it did, and of course everyone saw the initial blowback, but since then there's been so much support, and I've just realized through it all that I'm going to speak truth, and if people like it, great. If they don't, I'm going to keep going and keep speaking. So it has given me some courage to say I'm going to follow God first, and whatever happens, but I'm going to trust his plan.
It doesn't sound, Senator, like you had to do a lot of arm twisting here. Is that a fair assessment on my end?
Well, I think everybody knows that Harrison Butker, he believes what he believes. He is clear about his beliefs, and you're not going to move him off of it. And that's why I think people respect him so much. That's why I respect him so much, is that this is a man of principle and integrity. And I just have to say, to have his support in this race, I mean, you and I, we've talked about this, Pete. This is a moment of crisis for our country. We cannot go on like this. We have got to change direction. And to have Harrison there supporting me as I try to do my part is just, it's amazing.
Well, last thing, Harrison, let's just talk about where you feel like this team's at. You're going into a bye week. You got a little time off here. You're doing things with Senator Hawley. How you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. We're 5-0, and almost all of those games felt like playoff games. Arrowhead's been rocking for all the home games. We have another big game against the 49ers, but the NFL is so competitive now, and everyone wants to beat the Chiefs. We've got 2 Super Bowls recently, and obviously going for the three-peat. But I think when you have Andy Reid at the head, and you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and some of our great leaders that are so consistent and just following the formula. That's our motto for this season is following the formula. We know what the process is, and we just got to make sure we show up and we do it, and we attack every day to be the best we can.
So do you have any butterflies going into this more than kicking a big field goal and AFC Championship game? Do you have any butterflies for this little political hit you're about to do here?
I can't say it's the same as a football game, but I'm excited to see all the supporters out here and be here today and enjoying the bye week by going to a political rally. So I'm excited for it.
Our listeners appreciate both you guys, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
We had 5 minutes yesterday with Harrison Butker and Josh Hawley up in Parkville, and you just heard it here on KCMO Talk Radio, and that was before they went out to fire up and do their rally with the crowd. And the takeaway to me in looking at these two guys in the eye and talking to them is that Harrison Butker's not afraid of the moment. He's doing this obviously as a citizen. He's not doing this as the Chiefs kicker, because I got so many people on social media saying, oh, now you're okay with athletes being political. You've totally missed the boat. You've completely misrepresented what many of us criticized, whether it was Colin Kaepernick or anybody else, for doing. And that is bringing the politics to the field, right? Like, Harrison Butker's not going to show up in San Francisco next Sunday with a Josh Hawley for Senate button on that he got in Parkville. He's not going to do that. The guy's on a bye week. You saw Andy and Mahomes at the games the last couple of days, and he's spending his time with Josh Hawley on the campaign trail because it's something he is passionate about and believes in and understands the future of our country is at stake here. And he's doing it in his own time as a citizen, not doing it in a situation where he's like on the field and he's got like some Hawley for Senate sign. He's sitting up on the field, before he goes out there to kick a field goal. Not doing that. Two completely separate things. And anybody with a functioning brain understands that. But for people that don't want to understand or admit the very clear differences here, they can't figure that out, or they just don't want to figure that out. So we will have the interviews up on our social media pages as well. And I bring up some of the trolls because I put the photo up yesterday of myself and Josh and Harrison on Instagram at Pete Mundo, and then also you can see it on X. And by the way, I'm not usually the smallest guy in a photo, but in this case, I am. So I'm the little guy in the photo, and I'm like 6'1". But Josh is a big guy, and I don't know, Harrison's got to be 6'5". He's just a big dude. I'm like looking up at him like I'm talking to an NBA player, which I haven't done in quite some time since my sports background days. I'm like, dang, this guy big. So I'm the little guy in the middle at like 6'1". But the trolls were all over the place, as you would expect. And it was all about, oh, no, you like when the athletes get political. No, athletes, by the way, have always given time and money privately to people they support. That's nothing new. But what Harrison Butker is also doing, and this is something that was touched on yesterday privately, is you're seeing more athletes, and he referenced it in the conversation, kind of have this moment of being like, hey, I am traditional. I have traditional values. I'm a conservative. And it's okay. Not only is it okay, now is the time in the nation's history to really be talking about things like this and having these conversations and supporting people, especially when they're friends that you trust, and these two guys are friends, to get into political power and help drive a narrative that this country desperately needs at this moment in time, when traditional values are getting attacked by basically every corner of the country, whether it's politics, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's social media, pop culture, it's all under attack. And for a guy like Harrison Butker, who is willing to put himself in that spot, and trust me, he gets plenty of crap for what he has chosen to do, but he also realizes that he has an opportunity here and a platform to help be a part of the change that he wants to see in America. And that in and of itself is admirable. 913-408-7957. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I did see that Harrison and Josh were on Laura Ingram's show last night as well. So we'll get to some of that throughout the morning. I was just warming them up for the big time on Fox last night. That's, that was my role. Which right. I'm okay with that role, John. I'm good with that. She's got a few more viewers, I guess you could say, with a multi-million viewer show there on Fox News every night. But hey, we've got the biggest talk radio audience here in Kansas City, so we'll take that. Building this baby up from the ground up on 95.7 FM. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy Friday morning. And coming up at the top of the hour, Barack Obama's back in the mix here. And he's very concerned. Do not miss that as we roll through the morning on 95.7 FM KCMO. Okay, that's cool. No, I will totally answer this question here on KCMO on the text line, 913-408-7957. You just heard the Josh Hawley, Harrison Butker interview we did yesterday while they were stopping in Parkville. So, Pete, what's the difference between Taylor Swift and Harrison? Texter clearly trying to go for the gotcha. Well, nothing. Nothing whatsoever. I mean, I never said Taylor Swift shouldn't endorse. She wasn't allowed to endorse. I thought it would be bad for her business to go down the road of endorsing. But here's where her income differs from Harrison Butker's income. Harrison Butker has a contract to kick a football through uprights. His income only fluctuates if he's not kicking the ball as well, right? In the case where he wouldn't get that next big contract. But Taylor Swift is a musician where she relies on people buying tickets, she relies on people buying music, and in a hyper-political environment, that can have an impact when you pick one side of the political aisle. So from that standpoint, they are in very different businesses in terms of how they make their money. But I never said she's not allowed to. I just thought from a business perspective, it would not be in her best interests. But hey, when you're worth $1.6 billion, which is what the latest numbers or reported numbers came in at for Taylor Swift, I guess if you fall to $1.4 billion, you're going to be able to pay the bills.
I was always told in class when you fail to learn history, you're doomed to repeat it, but I never thought it would be applying a Michael Jordan quote for people.
Republicans buy sneakers too. Right? So that's where it's just different. It's different because of what they each do and how their income is earned. But at no point was I like, oh, Taylor Swift's I mean, Taylor Swift's wrong to endorse Kamala Harris. And her post on endorsing Kamala Harris and citing Tim Walz was like one of the all-time weirdest endorsements ever. Clearly, she's never met Tim Walz. Have you seen the guy do anything? It's the strangest cat I've ever seen on a ticket. It was beyond bizarre. But I never was like, she can't do it. It's just, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. It didn't. That's all. So you got to understand the difference here. It's pretty obvious. Buzz and Lawson's on KCMO. What's up, Buzz?
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday. I take umbrage with these trolls that are trying to point fingers at, the football professionals and the politics, their analogy of that. So couldn't they take those fingers that they were pointing and pointing back at themselves and basically say, that KU professor, he was on his quote-unquote field. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't he thought twice about making those comments and such? I mean, they can't separate that, apparently. And, of course, then they're pointing fingers at professionals in politics and professional players and all that. Politics. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong.
You know what, Buzz? I hate to make your day, but you're not wrong. I see exactly what you're saying there, big guy.
Well, thank you. You guys have a great day.
You as well. What Buzz is talking about, of course, is the KU professor, Philip Smallcock. Oh, gosh, I always call him by the wrong name.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mm-hmm. Philip Lowcock.
Yeah.
The KU professor who has gone viral over the last 24 hours for saying this.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
So that guy's been put on administrative leave after that video surfaced on Wednesday, just 2 days ago. And yeah, to Buzz's point, that guy was on the job, right? He was on the job. He was on his field, so to speak. And you've got people who are making excuses for the guy. Like, that is not even close to being on the same page as an athlete making a political endorsement. That is completely out of line. And I'm not here to say and try to look for people to fire, but you can't say that in that role. You cannot incite political violence, especially against a guy who has had 2 assassination attempts in the last 2.5 months and feel like you're going to keep your gig as a professor, as someone who is in charge of molding the minds of the next generation. It is so out of line to say something like that and to think that you can keep your gig. I mean, heck, if I said something like that, they'd blow me out of here, and they'd have every right to do so. You got a guy at KU, and if you think that's the first time a guy like that has said something along those lines, you are fooling yourself. You might have been bored at night, but I know for most of you it wasn't last night. You cannot believe that a teacher, a professor, has the audacity to say something like that, and it's the first time he's ever said anything like that. Come on now. You know that when you are comfortable enough to say something like that in that setting, you've said something at least close to it in your past. It's just impossible to think that a guy has not gone down that road before when he says something as brazen and ridiculous as what he just said there. Philip Lowcock at KU. I got his name right, okay? I'm going to get his name right from here on out. I think, I hope, maybe. Depends what kind of mood I'm in on a Friday morning. But I'm going to do my best to get his name right from here on out, even though he doesn't really deserve it. So he's on administrative leave, as he should be. And frankly, he should not have himself employed by KU. I mean, KU is funded in part by the taxpayers of the state of Kansas. And you can't be funding craziness like that anymore. That's got to stop. And there's no defending somebody like that whatsoever. But trust me, people are finding a way to do it. It's crazy when you look at some of the online comments that are out there. 913-408-7957. I guess some of you saying Levin was talking about him last night. Well, good. Good. I hope it gets more national attention.
And Tommy Lahren right before we went on.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
In the 5 a.m. hour?
Yep.
All right, good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Tommy Lahren, who she wants to come on this show. Her producers reached out, asked to come on KCMO. So we got to get this might be a good reason to get Tommy on the show. That'd be great. All right, coming up next, Barack Obama is very worried about the brothers. I'm not kidding. His words. I'll explain it. You'll hear the audio coming up after the news. Obama's not a happy man this morning. I know. You're shedding a tear over that, but he is not a happy guy. So Obama's in the campaign trail now for Kamala Harris. They are trying to turn that ship around. Unfortunately, it looks like it's sinking like the Titanic. And they're trying to figure out a way to get her into the good graces of some key voting blocks that have traditionally always been there for the Democratic Party. And in this case, Barack Obama in Pittsburgh yesterday had a message, as he put it, for the brothers.
Is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
I love how he put his little twang there on the end. The brothers.
Yeah.
You like that?
Pandering.
Brothaz. The brothers.
I think he's got a little more in common with the Jonas brothers than the Wayans, for instance. Right?
Than the brothers he's talking about?
I was going to say Osmonds and Jacksons for the boomers out there, but I thought I better bring it forward to the Jonas brothers and the Wayans.
Oh, that works, John. That's very good.
Either or.
Nice job by you. I mean, heck, I think I spend more time with the brothers at this point than Barack Obama does sitting in Martha's Vineyard. Okay? I mean, you tell me. At 913-4087-957.
No reference to Big Mike.
No, none of that. So the NPR headline here in the wake of that story yesterday is Obama, in blunt terms, tells black men to get over their reluctance to support Kamala Harris. Well, whether it's Kamala Harris or Barack Obama, they haven't given, forget the brothers, they haven't given everyday working class Americans a great reason to get over their reluctance of Kamala Harris. Because whether it's the brothers or it's working class Americans, they're looking around and they're like, things haven't gone great the last 4 years. You guys haven't done a bang-up job here on behalf of the country. So to tell me to get over it and go vote for Kamala Harris because you're telling me to as a fellow black man, I feel like that is just awfully insulting.
Oh, I'm sure a brother really likes to be critiqued by a man in the suit.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point as well. It's like,
really, get over it.
Get over it, man. The brothers aren't turning out.
Brother.
You do what I'm telling you to do, brother. What are we, Hulk Hogan here?
Brother.
I know, brother. I know Hulk's brother is different from the brothers, but I find it so obnoxious and disingenuous. Like
condescending.
You're a black man. Yeah. You're a black man. You do what I tell you to do as the only black man who's been president. It's like, hey, brother, I'm looking around and things aren't in great shape. Okay? They're not. And by the way, this candidate that you guys rolled out on us, who didn't win a single primary, who nobody's ever voted for president, is not exactly relatable. She's not. I mean, the only real demographic group that I believe Kamala Harris truly relates to is liberal wine moms. Like, that's it. Everybody else is like, boy, this is an awfully phony candidate, is it not? Obama has incredible political talent. You can't take that away from him. But he also feels like a guy who's relying on a playbook that's 20 years old at this point, where people are looking around and they're like, hey, man, like that was great in 2007, 2008. You were a fresh face. Nobody had literally ever seen somebody like you get to that point in American politics. It was new. It was fresh. It was different. It worked. You were really good at giving speeches and rallying crowds, and it was pretty impressive to watch. I won't take that away from him. But it's a different world today, man. And this has been something that has really been bothersome for Democrats here over the last, bunch of weeks when you look at some of the polling. The polling shows that they are softening in their support with not just black men, but, Latinos as well. That's happening. And I saw this clip from Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley said this on a show the other day, and I want to play it for you and then tie it into what Obama was just saying. Let's roll the tape.
Listen to what he says. My entire life. And I'm starting to think like, man, everybody in my hometown is still poor. Yeah. Man, all the black neighborhoods are still poor. They all go to schools, and we've been voted Democratic for 59 years. I've been on the earth.
That was Charles Barkley. Now, here's the reality in America. The beauty of it and what makes it great is while everybody doesn't start in the same spot, we understand that. People do have the opportunity to make of their lives what they want to make of their lives. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't people who are born with the silver spoon. That's absolutely the case. But if you use that as an excuse, you're never going to get close to where you want to go. But it still is, America, the best opportunity on the planet to do with your life what you want and make of it what you want. And that's undeniable. And whether it's, poor black folks in more urban settings or it's poor white folks in more rural settings, there are ways out if you so choose to find your way out. And that's true for poor Republicans or poor Democrats. But specifically for the demographic that Barack Obama was speaking to, there's a lot of, I think, Charles Barkley going on there. And that doesn't mean that these people become Republicans tomorrow. But if they don't turn out to vote, that plays a role in places like Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania as a whole, in places like Michigan and the city of Detroit, in Wisconsin, in places like Milwaukee. And you're seeing this happen in real time right now in this election cycle. This report comes from Dan O'Donnell, who is a host in Milwaukee, radio host in Milwaukee. He put up on social media yesterday, Kamala Harris's campaign is drastically reducing its radio advertising in Milwaukee and making a significant buy on 2 hip-hop and R&B stations in Philadelphia, signaling possible concern over black turnout in Pennsylvania. And that is right in line with what Barack Obama just said yesterday in Pittsburgh. We got a problem with the brothers. His words, John.
Well, they needn't be concerned with the turnout in terms of numbers. They may be concerned about how those numbers are going to fall.
Well, yeah, that's true as well.
Right.
If they have a softening of black men in particular, where even if it's now, let's say, 75-25 Democrat instead of 85-15 or 90-10, that can play a major role in a very close election.
Well, I'm saying, too, when you urge people to get out to the polls, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it. Be careful what you wish for. And I'm sorry, but Kamala Harris is not someone who is really endearing herself to most people who are just like working class, regular Americans. Like I said, the View crowd, they're all in. But man, that crowd's only so big. And there's a lot of crowds and a lot of demographics that ain't eating that up. And even Barack Obama knows, in his words, that apparently includes the brothers. 913-408-7957. Happy Friday morning as we roll through the weekend on KCMO. The best commercial on television right now. It's powerful, it's impactful, and you don't want to miss it next on KCMO Talk Radio. Yesterday was XX Day. It's the real day to honor women. March was always Women's History Month, but then since half the country could no longer define a woman, we had to find a real day to actually honor women. So XX Day became a thing here in the last couple of years, and that's obviously in line with 10/10, October 10th, XX, of course. And the most powerful commercial I've ever seen aired yesterday in honor of XX Day. And it was put together by a group called The Truth Fits. Riley Gaines is part of this group. You may know her from her swimming days at the University of Kentucky when she was a vocal and very brave spokesperson against this guy that she kept losing to who called himself Leah Thomas. So Riley Gaines has become, and she's been in the studio here at KCMO. She was here with Derek Schmidt when he was running for governor of Kansas a couple of years ago. She sat right in this chair across from me. And this was before she was building Riley Gaines, the brand, but she was still on the front end of that. And I would remember sitting her here in the studio, and she was outstanding. So she's part of this group. They ran this commercial. You may have seen it in different places on TV or on digital media yesterday. And here's how it goes. They're going after Nike in this 60-second ad, basically saying, would you help us protect women in women's sports?
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike. Why won't you stand up for me?
Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you?
Why do you claim to support women and girls?
Yet when we need you most,
you remain silent.
Today, males are claiming our identity,
our sports,
our spaces.
Men and boys are stealing opportunities, medals,
trophies,
and our future.
It is not fair or just.
In fact, it's often dangerous. Yet you refuse to use your platform to stand up.
You say you're for social justice and progress.
So why do you allow men's rights to come before ours? See, with a big platform
comes an even bigger responsibility.
You have a chance to do the right thing,
not just do the easy thing.
So we're asking you, Nike.
So we're asking you, Nike.
So we're asking you, Nike.
As the biggest voice in all of sports.
Will you stand up for me? Will you stand up for me?
Will you stand up for me? Will you stand up for me? Will you?
Will you?
Will you just do it?
What a great troll job at the end. Will you just do it? Of course, the Nike slogan, just do it. Will you just do it, Nike? Will you stand up for women in women's sports? Because they've been on the front lines like a bunch of cowards trying to play to the pop culture crowd of trying to play this game where we should somehow normalize biological men and women's sports. And obviously we shouldn't. It's amazing we're in a world where this is even mildly controversial, but here we are. And calling out Nike and calling out the entire brand on XX Day. And this commercial I just reposted on my X page at Pete Mundo. You can see it there if you want to see it. Calling out Nike on XX Day, which yesterday was 10/10, and just hammering home the message, will you actually, Nike, support young women? And as a father of 3 girls, I'm glad that this message is getting out there. And even if you're not the father or grandfather or grandmother of 3 girls, you've got to look at this and say, in this environment, how crazy is it that I even have to think for a second about this being a possibility? I know it's not likely. I know the odds are it's probably not going to happen. But the fact that it's even in the back of my mind and in the back of your mind is just beyond disturbing, because you sit there and you say to yourself, what do you even say to your kid? How do you explain this to a child? That, well, you know, this is something you have to do, and I know it's not fair, it's not equitable, but, you know, sorry, you just got to deal with it. That's never a conversation that any parent should have to have. And too many people think that should be a normalized conversation, which is absolutely nuts. So when you look at this ad on XX Day, I think, too, to something that we saw yesterday when I was in Parkville with Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker. We're at this big rally, and there were a bunch of folks from Amendment 3 there. That's the abortion initiative that's on the ballot here in Missouri, and obviously the way to go on that is vote no, because it's incredibly radical. It's incredibly extreme. But there were all these folks who were there, you know, with their vote yes signs for Amendment 3 in the parking lot. And when those of us who were at the rally were walking out, it was mostly, I would say, older women with their vote yes signs. It was basically a bunch of washed up hippies who probably hadn't showered in a couple of weeks with their vote yes signs. And some of the folks who were at the rally for Hawley and Butker wanted to argue with these people. I get it. They want to get their jollies. I just laugh. Like, there's nothing, you're not going to convince these people in a parking lot to feel differently. You're just not, right? All you can do is laugh. Just laugh. Because some of these individuals were walking up to these folks with signs and they were like, you don't even know what a woman is. And I'm like, well, that's a good point. Technically, that's true. But I promise you, don't waste your energy. Don't waste your time. There's not a lot of rationality there to deal with. So do yourself a favor. Just walk by, smile, understand you're not changing their opinions, and continue to pursue and fight, figuratively speaking, for the values that you believe in. But don't argue with the people in the parking lot who are nuts. Do yourself a favor. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. When you play the Trump playlist on Spotify or something, this song always shows up. Happy Friday. We have made it to the end of the week on KCMO Talk Radio. So the Royals season comes to an end yesterday. We'll talk to Joel Goldberg next hour. 1 hour from now, you will hear from Harrison Butker and Josh Hawley, who we had on yesterday, or we talked to yesterday, for an exclusive interview when they did a tour stop in Parkville to kick off the day. So that's 1 hour away. But the Royals lose last night. So, listen, great season. Nobody saw this turnaround coming. You had playoff baseball in Kansas City. Now the question becomes, where's the stadium going? What's happening with the ballpark? Well, KCTV5 did a package on this yesterday. And, we talked to Quentin Lucas yesterday, but always I like to play other clips of his from around the market, around the city as well. And this one stood out to me.
Frankly, the game didn't end that late last night. How many people might have wanted to stop at a tavern or a restaurant and grab a bite to eat? That's the sort of opportunity you get from it long term.
So that's Quentin Lucas talking about playing baseball downtown and how the city and the restaurants and everybody else could benefit if there was a downtown ballpark versus people going to a game, getting in their car, and going home. And, I get it. In a perfect world, it sounds good. And we all know the Royals want to move downtown. Like, they're not staying at the K. I hope nobody got hit by concrete because that building apparently has concrete cancer.
Yeah.
They got a bad batch. I hope you wear your hard hat to the game. I didn't talk to Keatsman about that yesterday. I want to make sure his head's okay. Concrete falling left and right, apparently. But either way, we know they're not staying. The question is, where are they going? And then the question becomes, how do you pay for it? But that reasoning of, hey, people are going to go out and eat after the game at one of our restaurants, that may be true. May be true. However, if you go out to eat after the game, right, what does that mean? That means maybe you don't buy the hot dog at the game. Like, people have X amount of dollars to spend on entertainment and food and beer. They might, instead of buying the extra beer at the game or instead of buying the hot dog at the game, they may say, you know what, I'll eat after the game or I'll eat before the game if the stadium's downtown. But what happens is people just shift their dollars around. They don't magically have more money to spend. They just spend it in different places and different ways. And in the end, a percentage of their taxes that they pay on their goods and services will go to the city of Kansas City. But it doesn't necessarily give Kansas City this windfall of new taxes. It just shifts how the taxes are being spent. And that's the part of it. When the argument that Quentin Lucas is making there is made, it's always different than how they're actually trying to sell you on it. They sell you on it like you magically get more money to spend, but you don't. You have the money that you can spend on tickets, on parking, on beer, and on food. And if you want to buy that food and beer before or after the game at a restaurant because the stadium's downtown, that's fine. But it probably means you're not spending the money in the ballpark. And the bottom line for Kansas City is irrelevant. Whether you have sales tax dollars coming in from hamburgers or beers or hot dogs at a tavern outside of the stadium or inside the ballpark, it's all the same. In fact, it might be more from the ballpark hot dog because the food's such a ripoff in stadiums. And that's not me knocking the Royals. That's just a fact. whether it's sports or concerts, the money or the food inside of these places are just total ripoffs. We all accept it for what it is, though. And then there's the parking angle. So let me play this from KCTV5's report yesterday, where people were complaining, I guess on social media, about the parking situation at the K the other night. And I'm just going to say this much. I think these people are in for a rude awakening, but here's KCTV5's report.
On Wednesday, some fans took to social media to complain about traffic while entering and exiting Kauffman Stadium. Mayor Lucas even reshared this post on X that said, "I love the K, but coming into and leaving this game was a nightmare. Downtown Stadium can't come soon enough."
I was one of those people who was in about an hour of traffic getting back home, and I was just going from the Truman Sports Complex to Midtown in Kansas City. So that's, maybe 5-6 miles. I know for many others, there's a lot more of a trek.
Lucas says the city continues to explore what a downtown baseball facility would look like, as well as how the city would optimize things, so downtown with a ballpark could thrive.
We often do want to think about how can you make it efficient, but importantly, how can you make it for local businesses a place where people want to spend money, get engaged.
So if you're someone who was maybe at the game and you thought to yourself, hey, gosh, this hour to get out of here is just killing me. What we really need is a downtown ballpark where I can park on the 5th floor of a parking garage and I will get out of there, in no time. Well, you've actually clearly never parked in a parking garage after a big concert at T-Mobile or anywhere else in the country for that matter, because I promise you, if you are upset and frustrated with getting out of the K, and I understand sometimes they seem to just royally screw up the way they get you in and out of Truman Sports Complex. I've experienced it firsthand. You got to figure out a way and a place to park that gets you in and out quickly and efficiently, and sometimes that means parking near the exits if you can do it. If not, be prepared to do a post-game tailgate. That's just how it goes. But if you think that is tough, I promise you there is no way you're going to be happy getting in and out of a downtown ballpark. Unless, of course, you live downtown. Like, I love how Quentin Lucas shares the guy's post on X who's like, this is crazy. This parking stinks. I can't wait to get downtown. Well, yeah, sure. If you live at 1 light or 2 light or 3 light, yeah, you'll be great. You'll be in good shape. But for everybody else who's like driving out of a stadium to leave a game, it's not going to be much different. And frankly, I'm in no way convinced it's going to be better. So if you're going to pitch the downtown ballpark, that's fine. Like, I get it. It's cool. It's got some potential. I don't think that John Sherman should move away from his desire to be in more of a downtown environment. I'm just saying, don't pitch it based on the parking, please. Please do not make like it'll be easier to get in and out of the game part of the pitch. Because nobody who's ever been to a major event in their lives can possibly believe that it will be easier to get out of a downtown environment than it will be to get out of the K or Arrowhead for a football game. You just kind of bake it in to what you're doing. You understand, hey, if I'm going to be in this seat and I'm going to wait till the end of the game, it's going to take me some time to get out of here. That's just how it goes. And hopefully you go to enough games, you kind of figure out where you want to be, you try some new spots, you figure out what works, you figure out what doesn't. It's kind of trial and error. I know I've got the spots that I like the sides of the stadium that I like, and that's just how it goes. You do it enough, you figure out what you like and what works for you based on where you got to go.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, for me, I like the south side. That's been my side. That's how I like to get in and out of the stadium, and it's always been pretty effective for me the last few years. But if you don't do it a lot, then guess what? You're probably going to wait. But downtown won't make it any better. If you think that people are going to take a streetcar to and from a game, then you never actually have been downtown during a major event and tried to take the streetcar. It's not mass transit. Do not let anybody hoodwink you into thinking that is mass transit. It's not. It's a toy train that looks fun, that doesn't actually move massive amounts of people. It's not efficient. It's not a reliable way to transport yourself from point A to point B. And as someone who used to live downtown, I used to outwalk that thing after events at T-Mobile. And I was going uphill, by the way. I was going from T-Mobile up to 6th and Broadway, and I'd outwalk the streetcar on multiple occasions after big events at T-Mobile. I'd go to the stop there that they had for the streetcar, and I'd see way too many people hanging around. I'm like, all these people aren't even fitting in the streetcar. I'm going to walk. And there was one time I will never forget after the Big 12 tournament. I get to where my stop would have been for the streetcar, like 7th Street maybe. And the streetcar gets there right as I'm getting there as well. And I walked the entire way. And I never saw a streetcar until I got to the stop I would have been at anyway. And I said to myself, well, I got my steps in. It's a win-win for me. 913-4087-957. Pete, imagine drunk rival fans in the streetcar. Yeah, I'll pass on that. The only thing worse than riding the streetcar is riding it jammed like a sardine with Yankees fans. So I'll pass on that because they'll treat it like the subway in New York City. They'll just start peeing all over the place. I mean, the New York City subway, as someone who lived there for 5 years, is as disgusting as it comes. And apparently, from what I've heard, it's only gotten worse with all the issues they've got in that town right now. The E-train used to be okay. That's what I would have to take sometimes going from CBS to Fox. But, man, some of those trains, you wouldn't want to sit down based on some of the things happening there. Oh, my gosh, disgusting. 913-4087-957. Speaking of the Royals, Joel Goldberg is going to be here next hour, put a bow on the season. John Holt, our buddy at Fox 4, will be here for our featured Friday segment on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Some of you wondering if I'm a hypocrite on something. And I will defend why I'm not next. 7:50, happy Friday. Tough break for the Royals last night, but hey, what a turnaround, what a season. But is downtown baseball really going to make all the difference? Especially when, hey, you win. You're going to fill that ballpark. We know it's happening. It's just a matter of where and when. Annette's in Kansas City. Hey, Annette, good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, Annette. What's happening?
Oh, just wanted to let you know that a few years back I went to an Indians game when they were the Indians in Cleveland. And my cousin
Whoa, Annette, that's the Guardians now. We can't say the Indians. Come on.
But when I saw them, guess what? When I saw them, they were the Indians. This was a little while back.
All right. Good deal. I love it.
So, anywho, we go, and when the game was over with, they had a concert getting out at the same time. And I'm telling you, we didn't get home for like 3 hours. Traffic was backed up. It was terrible. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And then, conversely, went to Boston, and we took these underground, I guess they were underground trains, and those worked well. So just
yeah, well,
2 cents worth.
You know, here's the thing. Annette, thank you. And yes, R.I.P. Chief Wahoo, by the way. It was nice knowing you. He got canceled back in 2020, I think, with Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben. Chief Wahoo went away. But those New York or those Northeast cities where they've already got the infrastructure with the subways and the trains, you're never going to duplicate that anywhere else in America because it's just too expensive. Could you imagine how many billions of dollars it would cost at this point to build a subway system? Especially in a place like Kansas City that's just not built that way, and people don't live here because they want to ride a subway. Trust me, I rode a subway for 5 years. I would do trains to subways. I did buses when I was working in New York and doing Fox and CBS and all those different things, Sports Illustrated and whatnot. And it's like, I don't ever want to do it again. Trust me. Sitting in my car, using my radio, listening to what I want to, not sitting like a sardine, squeezed between a couple of guys who smell like just they haven't showered in 3 weeks. I'm good. But there are people who think that that formula would be great for Kansas City and many other, mid-sized Midwestern towns when, one, the cities aren't built that way. You don't have the density and population where you need it, and people don't want to live that way for the most part. But if you're a believer in the government always knows best and the government has all the answers, then that's how you find yourself in a situation where you think to yourself, if we just spent a couple $1 billion, or, I'm throwing numbers out there, people are going to love this. No, they're really not. Trust me, I promise you, they're not. 913-408-7957. That's the text line and the studio line on KCMO. So now, just so you know the timeline, Quentin Lucas said this yesterday, the timeline for a ballpark decision, he thinks is November, December. He said on the show yesterday that he believes after the election, when he basically said it without saying it, Mike Kehoe wins the governor's race, they will have a decision for Missouri and the Royals' future November, December of this year. So the election's going to be over in 3.5 weeks, but trust me, the storylines are not going to end, especially on this deal, because the Royals would be wise to try to take the momentum from the season and apply it to their wish list for the ballpark. Now, meantime, back on the political front, when you look at where we're at right now, when it comes to debates, Kamala Harris is begging for one more debate, and Donald Trump has said he will not debate. She has been asking for debates now for the last 2 weeks. Why do you think that is? She's asking for debates because her internal polls show her losing. She wants a debate where she can get up there, stand side by side with Donald Trump, and basically try to remind people that they don't like Donald Trump and they should vote for her. That's it, because that's all she's got. That's all the campaign's got. All they've got is Donald Trump, orange man bad. So they want to try to highlight that one more time in front of tens of millions of Americans before Election Day on November 5. And Trump is wise to be like, nah, I'm not going to do it. And I've supported him in not doing it. But some of you, when I posted about this on social media, have called me a hypocrite. And you said before, and it is true, that I have said, hey, we need our politicians to debate more. Debating is good for democracy. It's good for our politicians. It's good for the voter. And all that is true. That being said, this is why campaigns and political parties should agree on a debate schedule before you actually get to the fall of a general election. Because if not, what ends up happening? The person who is losing wants to debate, and the person who is winning doesn't. You see that in local politics. In Kansas, Sharice Davids looks like she will not debate Dr. Reddy at any point. She was supposed to be in Ottawa 2 nights ago and no-showed and canceled the day of. On the other side of state line, I think Mike Kehoe and Crystal Quaid running for governor have debated once. I don't know if there's another one scheduled, but if it is, it's going to be very late in the process. I want to see the people who want to run for office debate. I want to see them commit to debates. Whether they're winning or losing, I think it's healthy. I think we need more of it. But if you don't agree, like months prior to an election, between political parties, hey, whoever wins our primaries, we're going to have 2 or 3 debates. We're going to have it earlier in the process, not a week before the election. If you don't do that, then you end up in this weird place where the only person who wants to debate is the person who's losing. So I agree we need more debates, but we also need more structure around how we set up debates. We need more structure because ultimately what these things come down to is the loser wanting a debate late and the winner being like, why would I bother? So if I'm Donald Trump in this situation, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, why would I bother? By the way, he asked Kamala Harris to do debates on Fox in October, and she turned him down when she thought she didn't need to debate. Now she realizes she does, and she's trying to figure out a way to get Trump to do a debate. And he's wise to say, no, I asked you to do other debates. You didn't want to do it, so why am I going to appease you right now? And that is a smart play.